the kind of environment we have, that we are living in today, where, as you yourself said, the ease of access is the latest buzzword. And you also said that as far as you understand the forest, your observation about the forest policy is that it only seems to be giving access for the private interest to improve on degraded land, and by the way, get their business interests also fulfilled, like paper, industry. But isn't that a little too simplistic, is my question? Because knowing that how, you can define any kind of land in any way, degraded forest can become, good forest can be, declared as degraded forest also. So aren't you giving, so I would like to hear from you, since you have been in governance and you have all the kind of, experience, there are tricks of the trade, like you said yourself, how, laws can be watered down from within. Maybe you can't take it head on. And like you gave the example of NGT, how the NGT, and you had to go in a PIL. So is it not possible that this is like giving a little, a little foot and you take a mile? So the potential of really recasting the whole environment, the policy, like the TSR Subramaniam report, it's quite possible, is it not, is my question.
See, maybe I don't start with a conspiratorial view on the motives of people in power, because I believe that there is a certain continuity when it comes to, intention. And the National Forest Policy, there has been a continuity since 1952, that 1/3 of India should come under forest cover. That was there in 52, that is there in 88, that is there in the current National Forest Policy as well. Now, the new thing that has come in 2018 is that forests are also carbon sinks. They absorb greenhouse gas emissions. So we must have good quality forest cover, good biomass, and this would also help us to meet our international targets. What is a good forest? What is a high density forest? What is a medium density forest? And what is a degraded forest is well settled. It has been settled by the Forest Survey of India. Every 2 years we have satellite imagery of our forest cover. We know how much of area is under good density, medium density and degraded. I don't think that a government can monkey around with the definitions too much. I'm not saying it's not possible. It's possible that they can change the definitions. It's possible. However, I think broadly, as I see it, seeing the constellation of forces at work on the National Forest Policy, my take on this is that they wanted to show a faster rate of addition to forest cover in order to meet your commitments under the Paris Climate Change Accord, because you've made a commitment in the case of forests in Paris, that the forests will absorb X% of your carbon dioxide by the year 2030. So that was one driving force. And the second driving force, I genuinely believe, it was there during my time, it is there now, was that 40% of India's forest area, 70 million hectares of forest, 40% of this is degraded forest. Degraded forest means there is rootstock, but there is no green cover. There is no forest area. And what this policy does is it opens the doors for the participation of non-governmental actors, mainly the private sector. There has always been pressure from the private sector, paper plants, particularly industry associations. They have been in this state. Harihar Polyfibers. There's a company called Harihar Polyfibers, I remember. There's been a long-standing demand that we should create captive plantations for wood-based industries. I don't happen to agree with that, but I think this government has a different view on that. So my take is that there are certain elements of continuity in this National Forest Policy, but there are also some sharp departures from the past. And those departures from the past are in keeping with what Rajiv mentioned, the philosophy that we should have faster economic growth, faster development, and some of these laws will become, bottlenecks. One of the recommendations of the TSR Subramaniam Committee, which thankfully has not been accepted so far, is that we should delegate forest clearances to state governments. The moment you delegate forest approvals to state governments, irrespective of political party, it's a kiss of death. It is the fact that many of these clearances come to Delhi, and therefore it is slightly removed from the pressure point that some good forest cover has been saved. If most approvals under the Forest Conservation Act were to be done in state capitals, no forest would be remaining. That's one good thing that happened. And I think the government realized beyond a point of time that this would not be an agreeable proposition. So let us wait on the National Forest Policy. Let us wait. It's a statement of intent. And let's see what the practical things are in terms of actual content.
Sorry, I'm grabbing the mic, but just because it's the same type of train of thought that Madhu has raised, I've seen that there is a consistent, probably deliberate, it's not ignorance, we are ignoring the fact that grassland ecosystems do contribute to sequester carbon, if you are looking at it from a global perspective, but more importantly, they're also biodiversity reserves. And the Planning Commission came out with a document, probably the last Planning Commission, in which it actually argued that the fact that we have neglected grasslands has contributed substantially to biodiversity loss in the country. And the current draft policy also continues with that, as did the 88 policy. So this is one part, and the other part which I think is contiguous with this is the fact that yes, the two-stage clearance has stopped quite a bit of forests from being clear-felled, but the Forest Rights Act gives the Forest Rights Committee also the same power, and that has been progressively used every time to stop forest felling.
Well, on grasslands, let me say this, that one of the great tragedies of Indian ecology has been the progressive loss of grasslands. And this has had deleterious consequences, and the loss has been because of the spread of agriculture. It has been the spread of irrigation, which has then led to a spread in agriculture. And I don't know how many of you are aware that for many years grasslands was classified as wastelands, and for the Forest Survey of India satellite map. And when I saw it for the first time, and I asked the director of the FSI, why have you classified grassland as a wasteland? I mean, he really didn't have any answer. So for many years, grassland was considered a wasteland. And it's a land, for a forester, the grassland is not in a scale of priorities, is not in his priority. In his priority is good density forest, medium density forest, or a degraded forest land. But there has been a severe loss of grassland, and this loss has been to settled, irrigated agriculture. This has had, sorry?
Can the same point be extended to the 15 other vegetation formations in India?
Many of the wasteland definitions, by the way, I have problems with. When you look at the wasteland atlas of India, I have serious problems with the way, some years ago I gave a lecture in Delhi, in one of the memorial lectures I said, there is no wasteland in India. There is wasted land, but not wasteland. This, this is one of the great myths we propagated in the late 80s. That there is, when we set up a national, and I think Mr. T.N. Seshan bears a lot of responsibility for this, we set up a National Wastelands Development Board. But where is the wasteland? Because all land, some is being put to some use or the other. There is some suboptimal use or the other. And pretty soon the National Wastelands Development Board had to go out of business because they didn't have wastelands. Yes, the answer to your question is absolutely yes. The concept of wasteland is a dangerous concept, in my view, because it leads you to identify lands as wasteland, and then you have the result that you have had, as in the case of grasslands.
Mansi. pride as a community dweller? And secondly, where do you see a balance between the two? Because it pegs this on the developmental plans for cities. That's what it says. It doesn't give out any kind of details of how it can be done. It just says based on the developmental activities of a plan.
I don't disagree with you at all. I think urban forests or urban greenery, however you define it, has been a direct, the governments have been responsible and in the name of building infrastructure. Very few examples in India of urban areas that have survived this. I would suggest to you that Hyderabad is one city which has somehow managed to expand its infrastructure and retain its greenery. Bangalore, I would say parts of Bangalore I would not write off from a green point of view, considering the demographic expansion that has taken place. The green deterioration could have been far worse. So we have to thank God for small mercies. In Delhi, we have had a good example, but of course Delhi is an exception because for historical reasons. So there have been very few cities in India which have survived the expansion of infrastructure. By the way, it's not just forests. Water bodies have been a prime casualty in urbanization. Bangalore, of course, is a classic example. Coimbatore, those of you who know of Tamil Nadu, Coimbatore, a classic, another big example of how, the water bodies,
related to
wetlands,
Shimoga,
Calcutta.
related to some forest.